a lot of human beings don't like change. A lot of people are not accustomed to change. It makes them feel unsafe, uncomfortable, and all the rest. But there are a few things in life that are constant, which is change, evolution. We can't fight the future. We can't fight change. We can't fight evolution. So there's no point in doing so. And if when you're looking at those things and those elements that are responsible for holding people back, it's coming from a place of fear.
Welcome back to AudioLife, the podcast where we tell your story in your voice. I'm your host today, Carrie Purcell, and today I'm joined with Georgie Speakman. Georgie is a branding and marketing expert, an entrepreneur, host of Unfiltered with Georgie Speakman, and she's also an author. Georgie's written her own book, My American Dream, which I hope she'll share some of with us today. But she's also co-author of the top new release and international bestseller, The AI Revolution, Thriving Within Civilization's Next Big Disruption. So if you're joining us on YouTube, you'll have seen the cover there. If you're joining us on audio only, you'll see links in the show notes. As one of the co-authors of this book, I actually got connected with Georgie through the book, but her chapter leverages her expertise in marketing and branding in the context of interoperability and evolution amidst the rise of AI. Georgie, I'm excited to talk to you today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Carrie. Likewise, very delighted to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I know even just from that introduction, we're going to cover a lot today. Of course, I'm excited about the newest book, but I'm going to reserve some time for that later. And first, we'll get to know you a little bit more from your personal and your professional life, if that's okay with you.
Sure thing.
Good. So I think I'll start, you did write a book, My American Life, talking about your American experience. I'm going to ask you to talk about your background. So a little bit about maybe where you grew up and your journey to America. Let's start there.
For sure. So I am Australian. I was born and raised in Adelaide and, had this just pie in the sky view, vision, goal, dream of America and an American life from a very young age. There was camera footage of me saying to the camcorder by the hands of my father. I was barefoot walking around in the garden looking for Easter eggs. I had chocolate Easter egg melted all over my face, and I said to the camcorder, "Mummy, Daddy, I'm going to live in America. I'm going to be famous and I'm never going to die." So they were the words of 5-year-old Georgie. I just had this weird obsession and connection to America. And then following that, I just adored a lot of the creative content that came out of the States, like MTV, VH1, a lot of the American TV shows, movies like Clueless, TV shows like Sex and the City. And so it was always a conquest, like, how do I get to America? And through a couple of false starts, I had an acting career there for a minute, and I was offered tremendous representation back in 2010, which I ended up denying because I had to make a decision around which bloody visa do I go for. The problem with the O1 for acting is if you come into the country just on that, then that's all you can do. However, I'd also harnessed and nurtured a business career for a long time as well. And so I had to make that decision, and I essentially gave up acting to continue a business career and decided to sort of pursue the business side of the entertainment industry. And I finally made it to America. Post the passing of my dear grandmother's, she passed on Easter Sunday, but her last words to me were, "Darling, you'll make a tremendous wife and mother one day, but you must follow your dreams. You must move to America." So shortly after that was when I aggressively pursued a business visa and finally came into the country at the beginning of 2013.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of background there. A lot of dreams, a lot of support, at least from your grandmother, but it sounds like maybe from other people in your family and your network. But some really big decisions to follow your dream in one sense, to make it to America, but have to define what that path might look like on that business side when you got here. So I think let's pick it up from there and tell us about work once you got to, and again, you wrote a whole book about this experience, but talk about work once you got to America.
Work once I got to America was polarizing because the entertainment industry is obviously a very specific industry.
Yeah.
And then LA is obviously a very specific city. It is interesting because I think us foreigners from around the world only see a very small side to America. We're somewhat, I want to say, brainwashed into only seeing the highlights of the New York type life and perhaps a bit of Miami, but mostly all things Tinseltown, all things Hollywood, as a concept, as a theory. And so, you know, you don't even really think as a foreigner. I mean, obviously I can only speak for myself, but I want to say the majority of us don't even think about other parts of America until we really start getting here. And even so, you know, it's a bit of a choice as to whether or not you want to pay attention to other cities and all that kind of stuff once you've truly settled in. But a lot of Australians do end up in LA and New York. I had harnessed a career in management consulting in Australia. I'd been working since I was 12. My first official corporate job was when I was 23 in Sydney after, you know, several years of study. And I basically, you know, always sort of worked in that intersection of like people, strategic business development, marketing, brand communications, and a bit of PR. And so when I came to LA, you know, I was obviously a little bit limited with what I could do with my business visa, but it was like marketing, you know, biz dev, PR, comms. So able to work in that space. And I basically launched a new career in entertainment. So my first job was working in a talent agency, and following on from that agency was a startup. That was actually, funnily enough, a spin-off agency from the ex-heads of ICM and I think CAA. And my time in LA kicked off this crazy visa journey from the perspective, well, like backed by different opportunities, having to switch visas and switch companies based on the types, how crazy the startup ecosystem is there. So it started with the 1 year in the talent agency that dissolved because their Chinese investment money fell through. All the agents dispersed. I was flabbergasted by the fact that they weren't, at the time, they didn't have a thriving digital department. And obviously we'd already seen a massive explosion of digital social media platforms, the evolution of the influencer, all that kind of stuff. And so I then, you know, joined the largest influencer marketing network in the country. And that, even though they had been around since 2008, they were home to over 300,000 influencers, you know, celebrities, sports talent, you name it. And, you know, they can still consider themselves to be a startup. And so that was the first rule. I mean, actually all of them, like it was always sort of working in that intersection of tech, entertainment, talent brands, and new media. And so from that opportunity, worked on the opposite side of influence, where everything was high touch experiences, highbrow curated events, you know, dinners for all these beautiful lifestyle and luxury brands like Pernod Ricard, their entire portfolio, Absolute Elite, throwing Coachella parties. And a lot of that type of influence stuff was, you know, about in-person experiences as opposed to clicks, likes, and necessarily pushing content, which is a really interesting and opposite side to what I had been working with previously when I had clients like NBC, Universal, Disney, Warner Music Group, and groups like that were very much about data and metrics and the specific social platforms.
Yeah.
I then had an amazing opportunity to be a part of a founding team to launch a new startup for Jay-Z, a part of the Rock Nation portfolio. So I had to switch visas again. They were the first group that made me relinquish my O1 and get on an E3, which kicked off a very challenging immigration journey, quite frankly. But that was an incredible experience. The same thing, you know, dealing with brands and that intersection of tech and talent and things like that, and sort of on it went from there. But it was always in that intersection of tech, entertainment, talent, brands, and new media.
Yeah.
And then after a very sad ending to one startup where I was just so devastated that it came to an end and was yet another experience that was out of my control, I was like, okay, I'm going to start my own business because I can't do this startup stuff anymore, even though I've continued working with startups. And then a year into that business or less, I had the opportunity to start Outlier Records. So the consulting practice where I was managing talent and doing go-to-market strategies for startups was called Outlier. But then I just had the opportunity to also meet one of the heads of The Orchard, which is Sony Music's sort of largest digital marketing and streaming and distribution platform in the world. And so I started Outlier Records, never having run a label before. Then I had to set up all of that and just manage that on top of everything else. And it's been a fun journey.
It has been fun. So some visa twists and turns in there. I have to say that hearing you talk through the journey, gives it that sort of that logic, that chronology that if I just read your bio, and some of us are like this. You look at our bios and they don't make sense. You've done all these different areas. How do they come together? So I appreciate all of that actual path that tells us how they came together. I know we're going to focus on technology and AI a fair amount in this conversation. So maybe this is a good moment to ask about, key turning points that led you to focus more on AI.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a very easy one to answer. So I think off the back of LA and always working for front-facing, forward-facing, innovating sort of startups and companies that were sort of at that forefront of that intersection I mentioned, tech, talent, brands, all the rest. When I was working within my own business, outside of doing a lot of brand deals with talent that I was either managing and facilitating, influencer campaigns and other bits and pieces, through working with talent and major brands, a lot of startups started coming to me, which was great because it was in my wheelhouse anyway, particularly with my background in management consulting and everything else I'd done cumulatively, where they wanted me to sort of operate as a consultant and work on talent deals and opening the doors to Hollywood, essentially. So a lot of these startups, some were in LA, others were like Midwest or East Coast or Southeast or whatever. And a lot of them hadn't done time in LA. And it takes tremendous effort, tremendous time to really build those trusted relationships in LA, in the industry. And I want to say that I did a pretty bloody good job at doing that pretty quickly in my time in LA. And so it started sort of there, and I was engaged with then it sort of started with music, NFT, marketplace and publishers, small startups that needed, help on all of the brand architecture, strategic marketing, go to market. And so it began in that Web3 space, IPFS, and a couple of crypto-based companies. But what I quickly saw and identified was a lot of these companies didn't have the funds to truly go the distance from the perspective that it took a lot of time and money to actually educate the prospective clients and buyers. And so even the smaller, like Loom, that was a great startup that I worked with, had to dissolve because they were almost just getting accosted by all these celebrities that had millions of dollars behind them already. And in us looking to do a lot of talent deals, a lot of it was I'll do the deal or I'll partner with you for 7 figures. And so obviously a startup like that can't go the distance. And so long story short, the Web3 space at that time failed to gain mass adoption. Too much time, effort, energy, and in turn money was being spent on educational type assets to justify A, to justify B, to justify C, and on it went. And it was just very annoying. So then I was like, okay, look, I'm really passionate clearly about innovation and future technology. What clearly is the next stage and phase of this journey? Well, it's obviously AI. Always loved robots. I've always loved just to get fascinated by the capabilities of technology. So it was in 2023 that I took myself off to UC Berkeley, studied a little executive program in artificial intelligence, business strategies and applications, just to sort of concretize my genuine interest in the space and get a little bit more education under my belt. And then I was lucky to find, local startups to work with in that space. And I have since continued to just, do my best to, secure and source opportunities in that world. But here's the catch. It is really interesting. And I have to make this point, which leads to my chapter in the book, which is AI, as you're aware, Carrie, is still a big taboo subject for a lot of people. It's still a dark cloud that people aren't comfortable even navigating quietly and privately, even on their own. There's still a lot of skepticism around what AI even is, and how businesses that are so busy just getting through the day-to-day, how they can even utilize AI. Through a lot of these conversations, what has been super interesting to me is I've found myself coming back to my roots once again from the perspective that, wow, a lot of these companies want to build this exceptional technology, but they don't have a brand. They don't have an identity. They haven't built the architecture or infrastructure of their business. They need to recalibrate so that they can become more aesthetically competitive in market, create that point of difference before they even think about an AI strategy or integrating AI. A lot of the time it can happen seamlessly or simultaneously rather, but otherwise, I've found that, again, like a lot of these companies that may have initially expressed interest in AI have come back to the fact that, well, shit, like we need help with actually go to market. Like, how do we present ourselves?
Yeah.
And so I've found myself doing a lot of that work amidst the world of AI.
Got it. Excellent overview and segue. Again, it really helps us to understand that journey and how technology and AI came to the forefront. I can relate to the spending a lot of time and money trying to educate people when you're working in emerging technology, and then also the sort of big budget competitors coming in and, disrupting things. The state of businesses with uncertainty around AI, with excitement around AI, with trying to figure out how to integrate, how to evolve, how to transform. I think you put it really well. I find it extremely interesting that with your background, your insight, that you've essentially found this gap in the market where people don't necessarily know, or companies or organizations don't necessarily know how to brand and market what they're doing, because I think it's an area that a lot of people are looking at from different perspectives.
Yes.
And you're sitting here saying, okay, but here's a bit, and it does fit back into that education piece that you talked about, really, right? It is branding in an education way. I'm also glad that you hinted at your chapter, because I wanted to push us there next. And before I dig into some of the content, just give our listeners kind of that 60-second, what is your chapter about?
Absolutely. So it's really about the understanding that, and I like to use the analogy that we're aware there are two sides to every coin, right? I like the concept of relativity. There's night, day, dark, light, good, bad, whatever, right? There's these concepts of polarity, dichotomy, and then also just the scales of balance. Now, taking that concept or those themes into consideration when you think about artificial intelligence, well, that's great. What it's doing is providing, epic or hopefully very tailored and custom problem-solving solutions in all realms, a whole range of different, realms of business and different sectors and industries. That's what I would call the back-end side of any business, or one side of the coin. But then again, the other side of the coin is what engages and entices the customer. What are you saying to the world? What are the founders representing? How do you get that personalized touch? How do you really connect with consumers and build a scalable, memorable, sustainable business amidst an incredibly, forever evolving and competitive landscape? And so my chapter, in the spirit of interoperability, which has quite a few different meanings, is all about ensuring that not only all those digital ecosystems are best interconnected, but you also have, key messaging wrapped in and throughout, from the technology through to the customer journey and customer experience, and hopefully a very successful one. And then also, establishing proper infrastructure behind the company, meaning a lot of tech companies naturally are focused on the tech. A lot of the builders of the AI, a lot of the builders of the technology, being engineers and developers and so on, they're not thinking about the customer, funnily enough, in a lot of instances. And I've seen it now a million times, where there is a huge disconnect between engineering and development teams, product management and marketing, or customer experience and customer service or account management, through to obviously business development. But then from product marketing and management to traditional, or like the master marketing team, all the way through to business development and sales. And so interoperability from that perspective includes how you get that seamless message and interconnectivity, process and policies and procedures around how those teams communicate, collaborate, and work together, and how you're essentially being able to best position the company for maximum success from that back end to the front end. Again, like making sure two sides of that coin are truly connected, truly speaking to one another. And I guess another analogy is thinking about a car. Like, you wouldn't buy a car if a wheel or the steering wheel is missing, right? Like, it has to be a well-oiled, well put together machine, and you're going to love the way that car works, but you're also going to buy into the way it looks, the way it makes you feel,
Sure.
the sentiments around it. And so that's what my sort of chapter's about, and sort of where I've been coming from in the work that I've been doing.
Awesome. Very exciting. I hope everybody's ready to dig in, because I thought that was an amazing introduction. Okay, lots that I still want to cover. So there's a few things I want to pull out of your chapter in addition to the introduction you just gave us. But I think maybe let's for people listening who are, how can they embrace change, or what's that mindset shift or that level of education that they need? So yeah.
I think that's a great question, because I think every single one of us actually has to ask that question, not just as it pertains to AI, but in our own personal lives.
Yeah.
A lot of human beings don't like change. A lot of people are not accustomed to change. It makes them feel unsafe, uncomfortable, and all the rest. But there are a few things in life that are constant, which is change, evolution. We can't fight the future. We can't fight change. We can't fight evolution. So there's no point in doing so. And when you're looking at those things and those elements that are responsible for holding people back, it's coming from a place of fear, right?
Yes.
So life is always, in my humble opinion, about overcoming fear so that you can continue to evolve and add value to yourself, to your own world, to the people around you, and all the rest. And so my advice in terms of how to get started with AI is, it's actually, in my weird opinion, it comes largely down to a relationship that you have with yourself. Do you want to grow? Are you curious? Are you asking questions? Do you care about the future? Do you want to run from the future? Do you want to hide? Or do you want to embrace it? Do you want to step into the light and understand how these things, this new technology, all these amazing platforms that have been made available to us can positively influence our lives personally and professionally and all the rest. And I want to encourage people to get excited about this concept of DIY, the proliferation of learning, micro-learning, and just diving into, just take your time to do it. But even if you start small, 5-10 minutes a day, half an hour, whatever you're willing to make time for, but download what I call the basics, like the ChatGPTs of the world, if you haven't already. And just even if you don't know how to use it, ask. I'm an interior designer, or I'm a construction worker, or I'm this, I'm that, I'm a cook, or I'm an influencer. How do I best utilize AI or AI agents, or what for my industry or career, or my sector or industry? Or what could an AI agent do in the world of cooking or interior design or construction or whatever? Or you have to ask the questions. And so it's really turning that AI, or the likes of chat, or whatever your preferred platform is, into a best friend, and really leveraging that as an extension of your own mind, to just get the best answers and engagement from it, so that you can learn and grow. Who doesn't want to learn and grow? Just ask yourself that. Like, if someone asked you, like, do you want to stay stuck in mud? Pretty positive 99.999% of people would say no. So then just apply that same concept, I would say, to the likes of AI. And don't be afraid. You don't want to stay stuck in mud. So dive in and get going and see what it can do for you.
That's great advice. You make it sound simple. You make it sound approachable.
And now for a word from our sponsors. Ready to share your stories and life philosophy? Or capture those of a parent or grandparent? Or maybe a corporate package is right for you to build connection across your workforce and add value to your clients. Visit AudioLife.io today to learn more. Our listeners will get 10% off using discount code GIFT10 and order number AudioLife Podcast. AudioLife, where memories find their voice.
I love that. Like, I do get that tone throughout what I read in your chapter. You talk about, so I don't think anybody will argue us today if we said technology is moving very quickly, AI is evolving very quickly. But you point out humanity is in a constant state of evolution.
Yes.
That's a quote from your chapter, which I thought was a really nice, in your love for relativity or dichotomies. It's a really nice way to say humanity is in a constant state of evolution, just as is technology. And I thought that was really good, right? You can say that you're afraid of change, but actually we are changing. It is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Just pointing that out for you. Pay attention. Don't get stuck in that mud. You said the world isn't slowing down. You said we're only in control of what we're in control of, basically.
Yes.
So you have a really great perspective to help people have that, whether it's a mind shift, a perspective shift, which I like a lot. And you do bring up, again, your introduction really helps because you bring up a lot of parallels and dichotomies, talking about the front end and the back end, talking about that front end paralleling our brand, paralleling whether it's the user experience technologically or whether it's the experience that we have out in the world.
Yeah.
So it's, really nicely put together.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Thank you. I appreciate that so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I know, I know there's a lot of experience and expertise, but also time and effort put into crafting those publications, to the time that goes into it, but also just getting that story clear that we want to share.
Yeah, I think like everything in life, there's a lot of complex and confronting subject matter out there, whether it's on a personal level regarding whatever it is. And so I think it's about neutralizing the conversation, because I think I think the predisposition of a lot of humans by nature is generally to resist change, because what feels safe and accustomed and comfortable and not like, whatever they've been doing, everything seems a bit confronting. It has to start with a bit of curiosity. It has to start with a bit of desire for change. But I think neutralizing the dialogue and to simplify it helps with really simple and basic sort of entry points, so it's not as threatening. And it's not like you're getting exposed, right? Like you can develop your own little relationship with AI or ChatGPT behind the scenes or whatever it is in your own time. It's not like you're out in the world and you're forced to take a picture and post it on social media. AI can be as, in fact, right now it's largely more private, obviously, because it doesn't, however you're engaging with chat or whatever platform you're using, that's behind closed doors for the most part.
Yeah.
We're starting to see the shapeshifts of that with the creative, evolution of like certain like AI studios like VO and Duet and like others, where people are starting to, just like we saw with the major Coke commercial, people are starting to generate like a lot of creative, solutions and things, but that's not what we're really talking about here. We're just talking about the entry point for the everyday human to feel safe and comfortable to take that journey into AI and really work out what it can and mean for them and what it can do for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've already made it simple, if I can describe it that way. You've given some advice there. What are one or two key takeaways that you want people, in addition to what we've already shared, that you want people to get from your chapter?
Two things. Let's not lean into fear. Let's lean into hope and curiosity and questions and just get comfortable with the fact that life and society and technology and ourselves, we're always in a constant state of evolution, and that is a constant. Like you can't fight that, so there's no point. So you may as well just lean in. So let's just get over that one. I think that's a big one, but it's crazy how many of us move from places of fear, which negatively impacts our behaviors and sort of certain decision making and things like that. And then I've lost the second one. The second one really is what I was talking about, which is the comfortability and the awareness and consciousness around, if you are pursuing a startup, working in an enterprise, SMB, even if you're a 10-year-old startup or you're an SMB that's been around for 25 years, but you need to level up, is understanding that concept. Like it's just so fascinating to me how so many companies still operate in separation. They separate the tech from then what business development is and what customers are. It is so important to seamlessly interconnect these departments, these divisions, these strategies, these thinking, these modalities. So it should be one, I guess like I referenced before, like that perfectly made car is what you're striving for. You can't have the missing parts. And so again, maximizing that concept of interoperability in all areas of a business is critical. I've just been talking to a like potentially new client now they want to be in their own words and way the next Apple in a completely different field, not competing to Apple, but just that concept of large scale brand. And in fact, it's not just them, it's again a number of people. 100% of their budget currently is going towards the technology. But if that's the case, how are you going to raise the money? If you have a broken website or a shitty landing page, or you don't have an identity, how on earth are you going to be the next Apple? How on earth are you going to get large-scale investors to be interested in what you have to offer?
Yeah.
How are you going to set yourself apart from the competition? If you have one broken or shitty or incomplete brand, or like a lack of, not even a brand, sitting there versus one that's glossy and refined and gorgeous and has its clear trajectory, who do you think they're going to invest in if they've got somewhat of the same technology? They're obviously going to go brand first. So, there are strategists and consultants in the world that will say brand is actually the most important thing, and there's a reason for that. So it's I would say that would be the two things: the fear piece and really understanding how important intersecting these elements and components, or like I said, maximizing interoperability is as you're navigating the future.
Yeah, excellent. Well put. Was there anything that you wrestled with or debated internally as you wrote your chapter? Maybe it didn't make it into the chapter, or maybe it was just, you really coming to terms with saying it out loud or expressing it a certain way.
100%. The some of the stuff I just spoke to being the like relativity, the fear versus love stuff. Because if you think about the fear around AI, what's the antithesis of fear? It's love. And that's ultimately what all human beings want to feel, want to express, want to experience, right? And so I was like, am I getting too hippy-dippy with something that should feel like it should be more tech-driven because AI is technology? But I'm like, hang on a sec, no, we're all human beings still, and we've got to have this human element. We've got to understand this in a human way. So I was like, excuse my language, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this podcast, but I kind of just told myself, well, fuck it, F it. Let's just do it, because there's a fat chance that my chapter will speak to somebody out there. Because I'm not an engineer, I'm not a developer. I mean, we're probably all going to become one in like the coming months, years, or whatever, with the capabilities of AI. But it was like, am I speaking too ethereally? Am I speaking too conceptually? Is it too hippy-dippy?
Yeah. I mean, every reader is going to have their own opinion, but I think, what was put together in this book, The AI Revolution, is a collaboration of 34 global authors, all with their own domain expertise. You're bringing your branding, marketing, storytelling eye to it. And I know that's part of the story that you're telling, but it's also how you tell that story, right? So I think you had some very interesting parallels, some very interesting examples as you've had as we're speaking. So I think you can write whatever you want. You can speak however you'd like on here, but part of the AI revolution is, this book in particular is giving people a broad, general perspective on where AI is today and where AI is going from these different voices and from these different domains. And I think I think you've captured that. I think that's a big part of the goal of what we're trying to do with the book.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think we've all done it. I've got the book sitting here myself. I ordered one hard copy and one soft copy. And I just think it's so delicious. I just want to eat the book, but I can't wait. I'm just slowly chipping away at reading all the chapters. And of course, I'll be reading yours tomorrow before our conversation.
That's how I'm doing it too. Yeah. Although I'll tell you, when you hold the hardcover up, it is very intimidating. I ordered one hard and one soft, but yours looks like a hefty textbook. Yes. The chapters are actually really digestible, I've found. It's not just intriguing to listen to these different authors with these different expertise. They're a digestible length. I found they actually end before I'm ready for them to.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I just read Yeah, it is. That's so true. I felt that way with a couple of them, and then I interviewed Peggy O'Flaherty yesterday, the founder and
Yeah.
CEO of Vinley, and in reading her chapter, I was like, God, it's just this. This is, you're all speaking my language. Like it's so interesting that we are merging a lot of these human things and human elements and human considerations like community into AI and what the future of that looks like, because there's always broken things in society and within ourselves that we have to fix or strive to fix or at least improve. And so this is why I love the sheer nature of AI, which is to solve very specific business problems.
Yeah.
But again, it ties in that human element, and say in Peggy's case, when she's talking about her third or fourth company in Vinley, the importance of community and how Vinley provides a different solution over and above what the existing, where and how the current mainstream social media platforms might be broken. And so to me, that's another consciousness and technological level up, that another human being has been responsible for creating, which I just think is incredible.
Yeah.
And so
Very cool.
how can you not love this? How can you not love AI and just this process of like evolution and innovation and concept of sort of improving things and solving problems? It's really exciting.
It is exciting. Yeah, I share your excitement. I think we should shift into, the vision for an AI future. So just kind of talking more broadly about that. And I like your spirit of, experimentation and iteration. And I can also, you're always making these connections that make sense in your life and your experience, but may not be connections that other people are making until they hear you making them. So I'm enjoying the, imagining the problem solving and the iterative nature. I think I'm going to push you into a question that's a little bit, you bring optimism to everything, which I appreciate. I'm an optimist too. But I want to ask you about reflections on, yes, opportunities, but also risks and societal responsibility in AI.
Yes. So, okay, where will we ever start with that? Carrie, how do I answer that one? That's a really good question.
It's
a challenging one.
huge.
So it is a huge question.
Yeah.
There's literally a million different ways you could answer that. I'll answer it from the perspective, and I don't know if this is helpful, because again, there's so many different ways you can answer this. There's security, right? There's identity. There are, criminal considerations, right, that could result in various forms of extortion. There's a million and one different high-risk things that hopefully will continue to be measured, monitored, and taken care of from a security and legal standpoint, as naturally the whole industry is trying to navigate. New rules, laws, and regulations are coming into play, obviously, all the time. Obviously, we've seen the likes of Hollywood scream and go, no to AI. But then I've also got, say, a good friend that happens to be an actor, a very successful influencer that has now just started getting into AI, but on the health and wellness side, because he's also passionate about health and fitness as an influencer, an actor, an ex-model who's hilarious. He's also a massive comedian. And he, for example, has started getting into the health wellness side of AI. And so people like him that once upon a time were like FAI and saw the threats around their actual like identity from a career standpoint, and now seeing different benefits, because they can actually bring different levels of positivity and solutions to people's lives, which is really, really great. I think in business, consolidation and curation is really, really important, and then understanding what risks go with that. So for example, if you're looking at consolidating administrative or operational efforts in a business, and you're wiping those roles out, and that means you're letting go of human beings, what does that mean? And then same with curation, right? You can, you might have isolated roles of people doing certain duties and stuff like that. But if you're curating efforts and can curate solutions through the utilization of AI in various forms, what the ramifications are of replacing people with AI. A responsibility we have is to, or organizations or just anyone has, is how do we still nurture humanity amidst this change? So in some of the conversations we've had in business, it's about allowing that human to perform at a much higher capability level. So instead of eradicating the human, you're
Yes.
turning these humans into more project managers. So instead of spending hours executing upon mundane tasks, really empowering them to oversee just the sheer operational modality of AI unto itself, so that they can execute. Instead of writing 5 demand letters in a day, they can pump out 500 or 50 or whatever it is, or 100 in a legal environment, for example. Like, how much more productive does that make you? It's incredible.
Yes.
So it's just really, it comes down to what the industry and sector is, and the responsibilities corporations can take to still nurture the humans amidst this change, and even repositioning humans in their roles so that they can still feel a part of it and not friggin' replaced. But it's not always going to be the case, purely from the perspective that if an AI solution is going to be significantly cheaper than a $400,000 or $500,000 a year executive, or 10 executives at $100,000 a year. Yeah, so it's just, time will tell. But I think that that's one side, and one big problem to solve, I think, on the business side more specifically.
No, excellent answer. I mean, it was a huge question. It was an excellent answer, and it's, we've already talked about fear and the encouragement to to jump in, to try a little bit every day. That fear of job displacement is massive for so many. I think from an organizational level, it is an opportunity and a challenge to sort out. I did speak with another author, Tom Mawhinney, from our collaborative book, and he talked about it as an opportunity for organizations to think about growth, right? So rather than displacing humans, to your point, let's replace humans. So you're talking about maybe they're project managers, which I think is a very realistic way to think about it, to look at it. So let's look at that growth opportunity as opposed to just gaining cost efficiencies at this point. So how can we all level up? How can the organizations level up and grow from this? So I think there's a lot there. What gives you hope about AI's trajectory?
I really just love the sheer nature of what AI, at least at this point in time. Look, who knows if, none of us know if in 5 years' time, the government is going to release hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of robots into society to do tasks, and what the risks are involved with that. Like, none of us have the answers for the future, but guess what? We never have. So,
good. Yeah.
And then this illusion around, fix your privacy settings so that, AI doesn't. Guys, I hate to break it to you, but the CIA and every other bloody agency on planet Earth already has all of your information. No one can hide. They took down Osama bin Laden, did they not? Through satellite technology and everything else. I mean, if they can find him, I hate to break it to you, but they can find you too. So it's kind of like that part is done and dusted. Like, let's not focus on the things that we can't control. We can't change that, right? So let's move on and get over it. It's just part and parcel of the society and the world that we live in now and today. But I think, again, just coming back down to solving day-to-day problems, that's what excites me. I just fed ChatGPT a master database, contacts database that I've had in Google as a Google spreadsheet for, I've had it for so many years, and it's got over 8,000 contacts on it. And I instructed ChatGPT to clean it up, consolidate contacts, add every single website to every single contact, like all these different things. And boom, can you imagine if I was to do it? That would take me months and months and months of work combing through those contacts and having to cross-check with LinkedIn and all this crazy stuff. So having tools like that just to help improve, and help on a day-to-day basis is just unbelievable and incredible.
Yes.
And we've done a bit of exposure and experience in the healthcare medical space. And so I love the fact that surgeons and physicians, and this is one example of many, can now, increase their time to see patient care of what is otherwise an incredibly busy and challenging, healthcare medical environment, where, they're already seeing maybe 60 patients a day, but going forward with the utilization of say, voice to text, note takers, ambient AI, voice intelligence products and things like that, they can see, let's just say, 100 patients in a day, and they can save themselves 10 hours a week of having to do manual notes and things like that. So I think just there are a lot of positive solutions and positive outcomes that AI is able to provide as well, which I think is beneficial for everybody.
Yeah, completely agree. What about kind of on a fun note, a personal way that you love to use AI, just something fun that helps you or entertains you?
Yes, I mean, being a creative at heart, I've never had the time. I mean, I've wanted to bring certain like characters to life for years that I've had in
Mm,
my mind since I was a teenager, in my 20s. And I'm like, God, I would love to
yeah.
find the time to turn the Muffin Family or Grey Cloud with Sneakers or Strawberry Snitches or all these different characters I've got in my head and my heart and my soul for all these years into something. There was one day I just sat, I was laying on the couch and I was just engaging with ChatGPT and I said, describe the characters, and I gave, the little overview, and what ChatGPT pumped out for me, I'm like, great, this has saved me, so much time in terms of animations or whatever. Like whatever I choose to do with that information is obviously going to be up to me going forward, but just being able to tap into creative solutions. I've started playing around with, is it Replit? Pretty sure, yeah, it's Replit. Sort of as a AI agent to build an app. And so, just exploring and pushing your own capabilities is fun without having the pressure on you. I've tried Canva, like creative tools in Canva. I still like the process of creating manually, personally.
Mm,
But yeah, just more so challenging and pushing when I've got the time, my own little creative interests, and seeing how I can be more productive utilizing AI from that perspective than I would be having to find the time to do it on my own.
yeah, very cool. Well, we'll look forward to what you might create, what you might produce with your AI assistants, creators, whatever you want to call them. Where can people learn more about your work or connect with you?
That's a nice question. I'll just say my website because I think most stuff is there. It is georgie-speakman.com. You've got, some references to AI stuff, books, my bio connects to my social platforms, things like that. It's probably the best way to connect or stay in touch or follow me on the socials that are connected there to engage. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And we'll have that listed in our show notes and on YouTube as well as links to both of your books. Was there anything else you wanted to share today that I didn't ask you about?
No, I just want to leave on the note of just go for your life, guys. Dive in, don't be afraid, and just get to it. Don't fear the future and see what you're able to push and challenge yourself with and create. You'll be pleasantly surprised. Don't get left behind.
Don't get left behind.
Yeah.
No, honestly, very, very inspiring, very encouraging, very positive. So thank you for that. Thank you for all you've contributed in our conversation, in your publications. Just appreciating your time today.
Thank you, Carrie. Likewise, I look forward to our conversation where I get to turn the questions onto you tomorrow. So thank you so much for that.
Me too. I hope.
Sorry.
I hope. I hope I was nice and I'm not waiting for anything. No, I'm just joking.
Still on all the note. I think you've done all the things. I just want more photos of you, more hot.
Yes, I'll send you some.
Yeah.
No worries. Well, again, thank you for your time. This has been another episode of Audio Life. I've been your host today, Carrie Purcell, joined with Georgie Speakman. I hope you enjoyed our episode. And if you did, don't forget to rate and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. We'll be back in a couple weeks with the next one. Thanks, everyone.
If you like what you heard today, consider recording your own AudioLife private podcast or giving one to a loved one for a unique and memorable gift. Today, AudioLife listeners will receive 10% off using discount code GIFT10 and order number AudioLife Podcast. Also, remember to rate our show and subscribe so you'll never miss an episode.